Bases dropped on Thursday Thoughts here on Soccer's Morning Show. Soccer Down here. Thanks for hanging out with us. However you are accessing us this morning, large device or small. Since it is Thursday Thoughts, there is a lot to talk about and a bunch of different topics across the board. And here's a little bit of the laundry list this morning. And we have not had the chance to discuss Messi and PSG, and apparently people yelling at Neymar at Neymar's house about not wanting him there either. David Ochoa's on the list. The most valuable teams are on the list, where Atlanta United's in the top 20. There's news out of Charlotte involving Charlotte FC. Apparently, Todd Bowley was at the Milken Institute and says there was some interesting comments there. We got plenty of stuff to talk about. I know I have to also talk about Carlos Bocanegra and his media opportunity from a couple days ago. But as we bring in Jarrett Smith, Jarrett, we have yet to start the opening kickoff. Morning, Coco. Morning, Alex. Yeah, exactly, Coco. $400 million. Aloha and mahalo, Knicks. Jarrett, who do you think, as we start the opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. There's the QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch. Reminder with Kickoff Coffee, don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15, thanks to those of you who have. And you get 15% off your purchase, and they in turn take 10% reinvested into the youth game. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. But, Jarrett, my question for you, who in your mind are, when it comes to confident soccer coaches and managers, who would be on that list for you?
Of confident ones?
Confident ones.
I know exactly where you're going with this. So I'm going to bowl this first ball down the lane in a way that sets you up really nicely. I'm not going to give you a 7-10 split.
No.
In other words, Frank de Boer always seemed really sure of himself.
Yeah.
And it's like it's this thing though where I think sometimes we associate confidence with something bad. And sometimes it can be. Sometimes you can be like confidently incorrect. Frank, I think for Frank, a lot of it was, dude, he was Dutch.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's how the Dutch operate.
I mean, just look at
It's
Jan
the same
Maas.
thing that, like, yeah, look at Jan Maas. Like, it's the same thing of, like, when there was the tension in the locker room between Frank and the Argentine contingent, like, no, these are different sides of a not entirely dissimilar coin when it comes to, like, kind of a blunt approach to things. Like, he was probably not as offended by, like, the concept of being pushed back against, like, oh, so it's like being home. Cool. That's fine. But I think he was one of them. Alex Ferguson was confident.
Mm-hmm.
You think of the greats as confident. And some of them, even though they would say they're not, I mean, I feel like you would get times where, Tata Martino would be self-deprecating.
Yeah.
I feel like you could probably get that out of Pep Guardiola at times. Jurgen Klopp is confident. Jurgen Klopp knows that Jurgen Klopp is good at what Jurgen Klopp does. Jurgen Klinsmann is also confidently incorrect about a lot of things, if we want to go down that road. Why do you ask, John?
Well,
He
because
said, tossing a slider that hangs in the middle of the plate at 82.
Yeah, well, here's a gentleman who is very, very confident. He's new in his current job. And you appreciate that kind of confidence when you're new at your job. Your boss is like that. It's like, okay, hey, he walks in the door. He won the interview. He got the gig, and he's real confident. So this particular individual, he had his first press conference yesterday. He's getting ready for a 4-match sprint, where Roy Hodgson says basically at this point you need magic dust if you're going to try to stay up and try to do something this late in the year. This particular individual, he views himself to be quite confident. He's got magic dust, but it's like the Ron Popeil magic dust. Yes,
He got it off the infomercial at 2:30 in the morning in between episodes of King of the Hill and Malcolm in the Middle.
That is true. And so when he had his first press conference yesterday, here's a portion of it. It's probably longer than the version that you heard, because some folks, deal in sound bites where we kind of like to give context to the full thing. Here is a larger version of the sound bite that you probably heard, involving a very confident individual in his new gig.
In the highlight of this year, when they've had their troubles, they've always known where I am, but it's never materialised until now. Like I mean, so I think that the football club chooses which way it wants to go, and far too many people think that I am old and antiquated, which is so far from the truth. I might be 68 and look old, but there's nobody ahead of me in football terms. Not Pep, not Klopp, not Arteta. So it's all there with me, and I share it with them. They do what they do. I do what I do. But in terms of knowledge and depth of knowledge, I'm up there with them. I'm not saying I'm better than them, but certainly as good as they are. I just wish that sometimes you can get the opportunity that you can show it, but that's never going to happen for me now, apart from keep Leeds up. And if I stayed at Leeds, this club was big enough to build a team that was going to challenge those boys eventually. But that's a long story away.
Is this the greatest work of all time?
It might be. You want to get really, really mincing and splitting hairs on it. You could argue that he's technically correct, which is the best kind of correct, in terms of if you're asking somebody, hey, man, how much do you know about your style? Big Sam knows his style.
Mm-hmm.
Big Sam, like wrote the foreword on his style in the book. Does that mean I like it? No. Is he being arrogant? Yeah. Hey, John, have you ever seen Shaun of the Dead or Hot Fuzz?
No.
Okay, it's Edgar Wright, and it's Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. Shaun of the Dead's one of the best zombie comedies ever. Go watch it, please.
Okay.
I really want Nick Frost to play Big Sam in a movie now. I think it would work. That's where I'm at with it. But yeah, he's just he believes in himself, which is step one. You got to believe in yourself. But he also, it's one of those things where like you're pulling at other guys,
Yeah,
to kind of pull yourself up a bit. Like at this point, he's probably not going to get that chance to build something. It's just he's a relegation merchant. He is brought in to rescue you from the fire, and then he disappears like Spider-Man into the abyss.
All right, and so until West Brom, Sam Allardyce was perfect in keeping teams up when he was asked to do so. He has a 7-point blueprint. The Allardyce survival blueprint, as it was fonted in the full screen when he was asked about it by our friends at Sky. And thanks to Sky for the press conference, by the way, over at Leeds. Here's his survival blueprint. And since we got 4 matches to go with Leeds, who are in a numerical street fight right now with 3 other clubs separated by 1 point as they chase 2 relegation spots. Here's his survival blueprint. 7 points. Got to have clean sheets, meaning no goals scored, not mentioning anything about a hotel, no goals scored on you. Don't lose possession in your own half. Play the first pass forward. when knockdowns and transitions, which basically to me means win the first ball, if not the first, then the second. Set pieces, exploit the opposition's weaknesses, and quality in the final third. Clean sheets, don't lose possession in your own half, play the first pass forward, win knockdowns and transitions, set pieces, exploit the opposition's weaknesses, and quality in the final third.
You know who else does this really well? Gary Smith.
I was going to say teams that win.
Gary Smith.
Yeah.
And not even like, look, I mean, because there have been times where Nashville really struggled. Like last year, remember Nashville had that stretch of games at home where they were really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hani Mukhtar just dragged them, like refused to let them lose. So you'll go through those stretches like that. But yeah, Nashville's one of those. I'm not saying it as a criticism of Gary Smith. I think Gary Smith is a really good coach. It's not my favorite style, but he's really damn good at it. And you can't argue with the results.
Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, you know about clean sheets, which and to the point that Sean Vergara is making, so play anti-leads football. Got it. Don't lose possession in your own half. Allardyce drums into his players the importance of not losing the ball in their own half. If under pressure, they are instructed to take a safety-first approach. Quote, and I can't do it in Big Sam, so I'm just going to have to read the quote. Premier League is so good that the opposition can capitalize massively on those mistakes. You give the ball away there, and the opposition are at your back four or your back two, and they're shooting and scoring goals. So play the first pass forward. He says, I was brought up to always make your first pass forward if you can, even against the best defensive team in the Premier League. A quick forward pass creates an opportunity to score. Too many sideways or backward passes allow the opposition to get back into their own half and put up two banks of four. Direct pass.
And to Burns' point, like we talked about, if you take this as if you're reading it as, Sam Allardyce is an expert at what he knows, then yeah, he is.
Mm-hmm.
Because he knows his style. He knows exactly what he wants to do every single time out.
Allardyce emphasized the importance of winning knockdowns from the center forward. In order to do that at Crystal Palace, he instructed Wolf Zaha and Andros Townsend to run beyond Benteke for every long ball. If you're static, you're not going to put yourself in a good position to win the ball. If you get on the move when the ball is on the move, then you can adjust or get into a position where you might be able to regain possession. Benteke would flick on a big percentage of those balls, so why not put two in behind him? Prioritizing set pieces both offensively and defensively. When he kept Sunderland up in 2015-16, they scored more set-piece goals than any other side and also conceded the fewest. It was the difference between relegation and survival. Comes from work on the training ground, he said. Every week, it's just a case of highlighting who we're playing against, what they try to do from set pieces, and who each player is going to mark. The players need to remember when you go out on the pitch that these are very important times in the game. I think on average, more than 30% of Premier League goals come from set plays now. If you don't coach it or show your players how to defend it, then you can play as well as you want. You can be on top of the game as much as you want, but one set play can give the opposition the goal that gets them ahead. And then the idea of exploiting your opposition's weaknesses, I think that's a big giant duh, and have quality in the final third. Sunderland, had that from Defoe, Palace, Zaha, Townsend, and Benteke. The lack of a cutting edge, he says, can be decisive. It's all right playing the ball forward, but it's the quality of the pass that counts. Capitalizing on scoring opportunities can make all the difference in a relegation battle. So,
okay.
So
to his point,
yeah,
you know what he doesn't do? He doesn't pretend to be. He's not going to pretend to play. Play like Pep. He's not going to pretend to do positional play. He's not going to pretend to do create total football. He's not going to pretend to be Jesse Marsh. Sam is going to be Sam.
Mm-hmm.
We make fun of it, and he's kind of weird. But there is a part of you that I don't know, man. There's a part of me that does give him credit for like knowing exactly who he is and not mincing any words about it. He knows exactly what and who he is as a player. That's fine. Like he does him. And there's times where it's kind of it is almost admirable that he believes strongly in what he does,
Mhm.
and he's possibly going to make it work if there's anybody. And if it doesn't work, I'm sure he'll get hell for it. But who else should get hell for it is the leadership at Leeds, because
Oh,
they fired Jesse Marsh. Not saying that firing Jesse Marsh was the thing that will cost them. I'm not saying that.
that was a panic move, by the way.
But you fired Jesse Marsh, and then his replacement was somehow worse.
Yeah, Javi Gracia.
And then after that, you get possibly signing, not even possibly, but you're bringing in Big Sam, who is like the dude you don't bring in after that.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, why? Like, this the whole thing feels very. The whole thing feels very annoying,
Well, with Jesse Marsh, you panic. Then you bring in Javi Gracia, and then you're not getting the results that you're looking for, and your defense is hideous, and you panic again. And so for this last month of the season, where Sam Allardyce is getting £500,000 to show up for the month of May, and if they survive, he gets another $2 million.
You went so against type with this to keep them above, and maybe it works, but again, maybe it doesn't work. And then what are you going to be left with? Is possibly getting relegated again and rebuilding that team that you have.
Yeah.
Because you've built it to play a certain way. Then to rescue you from the depths of relegation, you have brought in a guy who is going to want to play something completely different.
Uh-huh.
And if it doesn't work, I feel like the easy answer here is going to be, well, yeah, of course it didn't work.
Uh-huh. Because of what you did when you panicked not once but twice. And the final panic, you have gone so far against type that it is not even it is so 180 degrees what you did when you brought in Bielsa and then you went to Jesse Marsh, which was a progression. That same church, different pew, but it was a progression.
Mm-hmm.
Then you bring in Javi Gracia, who is opposite, and then you bring in Sam, who is opposite.
So as much as we make fun of Big Sam, and trust me, we will,
Yeah.
Because it's just going to be tough to watch. He's going to try and get results, but it's going to be tough to watch.
Mm-hmm.
As much as we make fun of him, I do want to stress that, like, hold the Leeds front office responsible for some of this too, for just picking weird ass hires, man.
Yeah, well, it's weird. I mean, for having a front office panic, and then you bring in folks that don't match type, and then you really bring in folks that don't match the type that you did when you brought in somebody that didn't match type. So, and by the way, you know who you're playing on Saturday?
Who?
Manchester City at Manchester City.
It would be just the funniest damn thing if it happened. If he just bunkered them into hell, which I wanted to happen just because I wanted to make the title race fun. Sorry, Manchester City fans, it's not personal. Yeah. I just want to see them make the title race fun.
So you want a camera on Bart Saturday morning while Manchester City and Leeds is going on?
I want a constant welfare check on Bart. I got other friends who are Arsenal fans too, and they are all different kinds of broken by pretty much this entire process.
Yeah, Arsenal's at Newcastle, by the way, on Sunday morning at 11:30. So if it didn't, if you thought that there was room for breathing, no such luck. No such luck whatsoever. So is this the best? Is this the biggest work in the history of works? That's the question.
And I'm kind of thinking no, because the more we listen to it, the more I'm thinking he's not entirely wrong. If you're saying he's one of the best managers in the world, blah blah blah. I mean, you'll have disagreements on that, but if you're talking about a guy who firmly believes in what he does and firmly believes in his style and can execute it better than anybody, yeah, he can execute it just probably better than anybody.
Yep.
So I mean, we can nitpick that, but kind of feels like that on that front. Yeah, he's right.
Yeah. Burn, the style works for short periods of time because soccer is random and the inferior team can win, unlike basketball, football, or tennis. Over longer periods, an entire season or seasons, the team with better players who play with the ball and create more XG will always win. It's just statistics.
And this is, man, we can get into a little bit about take it to MLS, take it to what we saw this last week, where I keep wanting to see what is it just a striker away for, for a team like Nashville.
Yeah.
Who doesn't necessarily want to play with the ball. They want to defend, they want to play on the counter, they want their set pieces. And then if they get in their situations, they are good to go. That was pretty evident last week.
Yeah.
That, when Nashville is able to kind of get it, we talked about it like an MMA match, or like Roman Greco wrestling, when you fight somebody who is such a good technician and they get you on the ground, it's curtains.
Mm-hmm.
Nashville got you on the ground, and it was pretty much curtains.
Yeah.
But they still need to have somebody hit that's not Akiloba, because Akiloba didn't work. I still don't know why it didn't work, because he's scoring goals everywhere else. It feels like it should have worked.
Yeah.
But and sometimes stuff's weird. Sometimes stuff should work and it doesn't. It's the nature of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're Nashville, what do you need to get it across the line?
Yeah. And that's what you're staring at. And I wanted to start the show off with Big Sam this morning, because in a way that is an irresistible thing to have, when you have someone who is that confident in who he is, and you're wondering, okay, is this a shoot or is it a work? And what we mean by that in wrestling terms is,
if anybody can work themselves into a shoot, it's Big Sam.
Yes. So basically, the difference between a shoot and a work, these are two kinds of promos. A shoot promo and a work promo. A work is where you are saying things to say things, basically. You definitely may not necessarily believe what you're saying, but you're doing it to cut a promo for the sake of cutting a promo, so sound is in the air. A shoot promo is where you have truth in your yelling. You are saying things, and there is that element of truth that's attached to the storyline when you're cutting that same promo. If there's elements of truth in it, and you're sitting there and you're kind of poking the bear a little bit, and there's truth in poking the bear, and you're doing it, so it's the difference between being truthful and saying something just to say something. That's shooting, and when we say a shoot promo and a work promo, or a shoot and a work, that's what we're getting into here, to try to explain the difference. If wondering if Sam was just saying something to put something in the air, basically a work, or he was saying something because he firmly believes in it, regardless of what the rest of the civilized world may think. That's a shoot. So
no, I'm just convinced. I'm convinced that if anybody in the world can work themselves into a shoot, can make it a planned thing that's just not serious, and then it just becomes real life.
Yeah,
it's him.
Yes. So that's when we say that someone's working themselves into a shoot, you're crossing over from one element of cutting a promo into the other with the manner with which you're doing it and the facts that you are presenting in evidence.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're looking at here. So, so Big Sam is our opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. Once again, there's your QR code.
Maybe don't fumble the national team bag, Big Sam.
Yeah, there you go. And that's your QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch. Don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15 when you're investing in Kickoff Coffee and getting all the coffee that you want. They, in turn, take 10% and reinvest it into the youth game. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Now, I know that we got a match. Yes, work, shoots, kayfabe, putting over. That is exactly that is exactly what we're doing, Nix, when we discuss it in these terms. It's works and shoots and kayfabe and putting folks over and all that kind of stuff. That's as folks of a certain era, that's our context for breaking down press conferences and quotes and things like that, where folks have an understanding of, okay, well, that was just a pile of, that's a pile of ish. And so therefore we break it down into these promo terms. One of the things, Jarrett, that we did not have the time to get into yesterday was the Carlos Bocanegra press conference, press availability that he had at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground.
Okay.
And he got into a couple of topics, obviously the interest of Tiago and Caleb, and the conversation also got into Luis Araujo when he was asked about it. Carlos admitted that the team has received a lot of interest in Tiago Almada and Caleb Wiley. The team wants to win a title this year, and from Doug Robertson at the AJC, that goal will affect any decisions made regarding offers made for any of their players. Quote, obviously, we're going to take into account the team's form, and I don't want to say something now definitive that we changed in the summer, but I think that overall and from ownership, we'd like to try and win a championship, so that means putting the best team out there on the field this year. And obviously, there's been interest. Napoli was mentioned a couple of weeks ago, and so there's nothing that has been added to that. But right now, that's the leader in the clubhouse of, Europe is interested in Tiago Almada.
Yeah.
When he was asked about, the process and past experiences, that's what you use going forward when it comes to decisions that you make with Tiago, probably that are going to start with high 8 figures with the number 3 or low with a number 4 attached to it. Carlos said it'll be collaborative with the kid with the club. Does it make sense for all parties? When does that time come? So that's how we're addressing it. Once again, he mentions wanting to win a championship, really want to try to be a part of that. So that's kind of what things are. And when Almada is sold, Bocanegra said the club has scouted options to replace, and for any individual for any team anywhere not to have a plan of succession, that would have been a very, very poor decision-making process for not having a plan of succession. Obviously, Atlanta United has a plan of succession for whenever anyone knocks on their door and is interested in a particular player. So should the club sell Almada once again from Doug, replacing him within MLS rules may not be as easy as like for like into a slot. Remember, Almada's roster designation is a young DP. Certain requirements have to be met if the team were to sell him, and that would allow it to sign another DP and keep the U22 initiative slots, which are occupied by Franco Ibarra, Santi Sosa, and Eric Lopez, and those come with those reduced salary budget charges. Bocanegra said the club would like to find a balance with a younger DP who have potential value and experienced DPs. Remember, Yorgos Giacomakis is 28, Luis Araujo is 26. And Caleb Wiley, the club reportedly turned down an offer last season for Caleb Wiley. Update on Miles Robinson, another player whose future may not include Atlanta United, yet to sign a contract extension offered last year after he ruptured his Achilles. Returned. Robinson has been asked several times if he's signed or will sign the extension. He has said he's betting on himself. Carlos said the club and Miles have continued the talk. There's no rush. Carlos also implied it's unlikely the club would offer him a DP contract should one of the 3 slots open. Should Miles sign a pre-contract in the club with the summer, Carlos said it wouldn't affect his playing time or status with the club. And you have Carlos with a quote there too. So, teams in a position to make a run at winning their second MLS Cup. Carlos said it has the allocation money to make a move. Looking at positions, club has 2 senior roster slots open and an international slot. Secondary transfer window from July 5 to August 2. Carlos says they'll have the ability to strengthen in the summer. So that is the direct quote when it comes to player outbound and inbound, when it comes to, folks knocking on the door and understandably interested in guys like Miles and Caleb and Tiago Almada. None of that really is a surprise.
And the thing is, the thing that I'll always come back to is for the criticisms that have existed for the front office. And I know there are some, that's fine. One thing I will always give them credit for is despite their misses on things, this front office has pretty much always done right by players.
Yeah.
because you go back and look at Carlos Carmona wanted to go home.
Mm-hmm.
He had extenuating circumstances. You know, you had,
Darlington wanted to go.
yeah, Darlington wanted to. Darlington was a weird one. I was gonna say Darlington was a weird one to try and parse out. But that's the one that ended in my head. Otherwise, but like when guys have wanted to make that move, George Bello
Mm-hmm.
wanted to make that move.
Yeah.
And we can discuss whether or not it was the right move. I don't think it was ultimately, given his current situation. But they've tried to do right by the player, and I will always give them credit for that, even on the worst of days. When DP's not working out, I will give them credit for trying to do right by the players. And I wonder if we get that, if it comes down to it. I do wonder if you end up getting that with a guy like Luis as well. That it's where it's just not, where it hasn't been working great this year, and if he's a guy that you look at moving, just to kind of give him a refresh.
Yeah.
Just to help him as much as you help yourself.
Well, and as a part of that press conference, Carlos was asked about Luis. He's a good player. The more he gets confident, the more we can get him going this season. He said that he remains great in the locker room, working hard on the training ground, pointed out players can go through down spells. Team is also, and quoting from Carlos, while it's early, we feel good. We feel confident. Haven't been maybe as consistent as we'd like to be so far, but we're still getting into a groove. And I think the nice thing for us is we haven't had too many different changes to our lineup. We've been able to keep a little bit more consistency, and so we'll build on that. And what I wanted to do is look at Luis's numbers on the whole.
Yeah.
Not just offensively. So here's and this is from our friends at FB Ref. Here's the percentage where Luis is outside of non-penalty goals. 82nd percentile in non-penalty XG, top 5% in the league, top 4% in the league in shots total, top half in assists, top half in XAG, NPXG plus XAG, whatever math problem that is, top quarter in the league. Same in shot creating actions, top quarter in the league. Progressive carries, top 15%. Successful take-ons, top 2%. Touches, top quarter. Progressive passes received, he's in the top third. Get this, top 20% in the league in tackles per 90 minutes on average. And
it's what he's done arguably best this year.
Yeah.
Is his counter pressing ability and the way he harries. He does a very good job with that.
So you look at some of the numbers away from the offensive numbers, and I think that Luis, as a part of the total package, you see him doing things that a lot of other folks, you sit there. He is not giving up once his offensive possession or offensive action is over. He is coming back and helping out defensively, and I think that that's been a key this season to that front line. You're seeing Giacomakis come all the way back. You're seeing either Etienne or Wiley coming all the way back. You're seeing Luis coming all the way back to help out defensively. I mean, how many times have either, if you've been watching on TV provider or been listening to Mike and Jason, have we been mentioning that front line coming back to help out defensively in a defensive action for Atlanta United? And so just because an offensive action ends, that front line is coming back. Luis is a part of that, and it comes through in the numbers that FBRF has put out this year. So I understand completely. I understand the frustrations offensively, but it's also part of a total package with Luis where he's helping you out defensively and not giving up on anything over the time that he's out there a full 90 minutes.
Here's the problem for me.
Yeah.
You are paying him to be more than that.
Right.
And he has not been able to get that done this year, which sucks because, again, you watch him play. I think he wants it. He wants to be really damn good.
Yeah.
He wants to be impactful. This isn't like a thing where I don't think it's a thing where he doesn't care at all.
Right.
But you're paying him to be more than that.
Yeah.
And so far this season, he just hasn't been. And that it really does suck because I think he could be good enough. but it's just not working, man. And I don't know what the answer is.
To answer
to
the
get him back on the front foot. I don't know what the answer is.
Right. Luis's base salary is 3.6, guaranteed compensation just under 4.5.
Yeah, you're paying him, and he does so many things well. But you need him to be better.
Yeah,
you do. You need him to be more than that. And right now he hasn't been.
Yep.
And that it does, man. It really does suck. Because I feel like, and I know it's been a number of people have talked about his numbers, even in France, were about in line with what he's done there.
Yeah.
I can say that for me, I hoped he would be better because MLS isn't Ligue 1.
Yep.
And I'd hoped that he would be able to take another step, and he hasn't.
Yep.
And maybe what he is what he is.
Yep.
But he has said and done all the right things. It just hasn't worked out. But yeah, with what you're paying him, you got to have more from him. You do.
And it's going to be one of those things that you're going to be staring at. We talked about it. That come the summer window, if things aren't going the way that either party is looking, is a fresh start something that you have to consider? And if Palmeiras, as the example that was floated with a Twitter account that was a month ago, they had like 2,500 folks, something of that vein. I'm not saying Palmeiras specifically, but something of that vein. If somebody knocks on your door and you think that it's a good thing for the player, and we've talked about it, and Jarrett, you mentioned it, if it's something good for the player and good for the organization, then if the player wants the opportunity to do that, much like we've seen you mentioned Carmona, you mentioned Nagbe, then it's something that you have to consider. Then, you want to do right by the player. And if it turns out that you're not getting what you're looking for from the player from 100% of his game, and the player thinks that maybe a fresh start would do him well, then it's something that has to be considered. So it is obviously going to be one of the storylines that we're going to be looking at here for the next month, going into the summer window, and then trying to figure out, okay, what is a solution? Are we happy with where things are? Is there a solution outside of the club? So it is obviously going to be one of the storylines we're staring at, Jared.
It is. As far as Miles goes, like I said, I think a lot of it comes down to what does Miles want? Is Miles good with staying here? Is he determined? Does he see it as, I want to go to Europe, I want to get a large chunk of money? He's in a really interesting situation too, because don't forget, Miles is out of contract. Miles is not bound by Atlanta accepting an offer from somebody. Miles can court offers from pretty much anybody at this point in the offseason.
Yep.
He's in a good, unique situation for Miles, which is a very important thing, because it's important that Miles, in this case, would get to choose where he goes, where he is comfortable, what's a good fit for him. And if that means he stays here, awesome. If you sign him to a TAM deal, I don't know if you'd sign him to a DP deal. I mean, you could. I think it wouldn't. It would not be bad, because he is a DP caliber center back. It's just bold to sign a center back to a DP deal. I know, Walker Zimmerman signed one. I still think it's bold to do it. It's not a knock on Nashville doing it. And it certainly fits with what they want to do.
Yeah.
But for Atlanta and for Miles, we'll have to see what they do. Because if he wants to go to Europe, he wants to make that jump. I would shake his hand and wish him the best. You make the offer for it. You kind of get an idea from his agent and from him, like, hey man, what's this going to take?
Yep.
What are you looking for? Can we match it? Yes? No? Okay.
Well, and a lot of folks in the Twitch pitch have been mentioning adding a fourth DP to the league status. Yeah, that to me gives you that.
We're just run it wide the hell open.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, that's what I would like. But under the current structure, I know that Tofk had mentioned a fourth DP. It would allow you to be more wide ranging when it comes to who you would want to bring in if you had that fourth DP. Like I said, I think you and I are of the same frame of mind, and I know that there are others as well that are on the Twitch pitch. Salary cap, go away. DP structure, go away. There are those owners that are going to want to invest. You will find out who those owners are very, very easily. And you'll know who wants to do things like the Pittsburgh Pirates. You'll know who wants to do things like the New York Yankees. That is what every league does.
And the Pirates are cooking the gas right now.
And you see clubs build themselves in different ways. The Union build themselves through their academy. Then they bring in players to accentuate what they're building from the academy. FC Dallas through their academy, working their way with players up that way. They either sell them on or keep them. And then they finally have started to invest because of the return that they're getting on those investments with those players coming up through the academy. Atlanta United building up through their academy in short order, but they're also bringing in talent from around the world to accentuate what they're building. So there are clubs, and Jarrett, we've gotten the chance to see this in USL Championship and MLS Next Pro with Atlanta United too. There are clubs that will build through their academy. Red Bull, they'll bring in, some kid from, Mattapan or Mattawa, New Jersey, and they'll put him into the Red Bull system, and that's what they do, and he's a part of Red Bulls too, and that's part of their shtick. That's who they are. So there's different ways to go about building your franchise, yet restricting the notion financially and through player assignment, meaning designated player, young DP, that kind of stuff. I think that it restricts what you could do if you wanted to build in a certain way. And, I know that this is a league that's only 26 years old and what have you, but the notion being that you should be able to build as you see fit. But I don't quite see that happening in the short term, even though that's where I would like for the league to be heading over time.
You make it work. You find a way. And this is why you develop from within, too. I mean, this is why you have your academy trying to build guys who can get minutes. That's why you have a Noah Cobb. It's why you made a George Campbell, who is in Montreal. Actually, I don't think George. I think George is still banged up.
Yeah, he is.
But you're growing these guys to be able to fill these holes in your team.
Yep.
Because you can't just always count on having to go out and find talent all over the world. Like sometimes just doesn't work that way. So you want to be able to develop your own talent. You want to be able to say, okay, hey, we hate that Miles is gone, but now we have somebody who we can slot in there. Are they going to be as good? Probably not. Miles Robinson, again, might be the best center back on this particular tectonic plate. But you start finding value for money, because when you're in a salary cap league, the value for your dollar is incredibly important.
And also the idea that if a player signs a contract, and this is a worldwide thing, this is, if you sign a player to a contract of any length, you're controlling the asset. So if the player wants to be moved on, then you are in control and get direct compensation for those kinds of things. That's why you sit there and you'll see players sign a 3 or 4 year deal in the last year of a contract, and then what? They're being moved on. It was so the parent club, the club of the first part, could maintain the asset and get something in return to the club for the club of the second part. So that's where that's coming from in these kinds of things. David, people get mad when Miles leaves on a free, but I think if he's healthy and plays at the World Cup, he's moved in January due to an injury that did not happen. Now back.
That was like they had this thing. They had this thing like scheduled out, man. Like they had it laid out beautifully.
Yeah.
Because it was going to be Miles signed his extension, played his years out. He was going to play last year. He was going to ball out. He was going to go to the World Cup. He was going to partner on the back line. And then he was going to get his move in January, and everybody was going to go home happy.
Yep.
And then his Achilles blew out. Like, the front office had this track laid out perfectly, and then someone tossed a patch of C4 on it.
Right. So that's what you're staring at in these kinds of things. I know that a lot of folks are asking about Miggy's salary. According to Capology, he is getting a gross salary of £3 million a week. 4 years at $12,480, $3,120,000 for the 22-23 season. So Miguel Almiron is making a little over £3 million a year right now at Newcastle. So that's so when that contract is done at the end of 2026, unless Miggy wants to stay at Newcastle, next contract is going to be one where he will be making a boatload of money. So that's it's going to be interesting. But yeah, right now Miguel Almiron's making $3,120,000 a year. So I know that folks were wondering about that, but that was a good piece of business for Newcastle at the time before the PIF came in. I'm sure that the PIF will probably sit there and look at it and go, yeah, we're gonna pay him to keep him, or we're gonna figure something out. But remember, if somebody else wants to come knocking on the door in 2025 for Miguel Almiron, then people are going to sit there and go, oh, okay, then what's it worth to you? So that's going to be part of it too. Yeah, I mean, Ricky says Miles' goal was to go to Europe. Even if he made a Bello-type decision, I'm sure it's still the goal. I mean, and I think that we're getting to that point. Jarrett, we talk about MLS 2.5, 3.5, 3.0, 4.0, those kinds of things. As Major League Soccer continues to grow, the first player that decides, no, I don't want to go to Europe, but I want to stay here in the United States and help grow the game in whatever market I'm in, I think that will end up being the next stage in the growth of Major League Soccer, the player being courted by Europe but wants to stay home. That, I think, is the next step in the growth of the league right now.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see, where he goes, what he's looking for. And no, I don't think anybody knows that except him right now. That's going to be on him to figure out. And he may not tell us, and that's his right to privacy. Mm-hmm. So just figure it out as you go along. All you can do right now is just play.
Yeah.
And he's doing that because at this point, this was a prove-it year for Miles, and he's proving it. He needed to go out and have a really good year.
Yeah.
And he's done that so far.
Yeah.
He's done everything. He's done everything I think you could have asked. Mm-hmm. So it is what it is, man.
Yeah.
Like we can, and I know we'll talk about it because it is a thing, but there's a certain point at which there's nothing you can do except worry yourself sick about it.
Yeah. And that's part of the growth of the game right now. The Major League Soccer is a top 12 league. To have it grow up the ladder, that's got some growing it's got to do on a couple of different fronts, and I'm not talking on the field. I'm talking in the boardrooms at the league level when it comes to salary structure, all of the guys that you could have. And we'll get into Lionel Messi. Speaking of guys that you could have, which you probably are not going to have, coming up in hour number 2. Hour number 2 is looking like we're going to talk about what's going on in Charlotte. There was some news that came out of there yesterday. Courtesy of our friends at
I got some questions for Charlotte.
All right. Well, then let's transition to Charlotte since we're talking Major League Soccer. We'll go into the details of the Tom Bogert piece. And then what we'll do is we will go and look at it from there. Alex Vehar had some questions yesterday, and it has to do with the proposed Andre Shinyashiki Justin Miram deal and why it did not appear in one form and it appeared in another form. And so this is from Bogert and Maurer. So before Jarrett leaves at the top of the hour, this was released earlier in the week. Charlotte forward Andrei Shinyashiki has been linked to a sexual assault police report filed in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, as reported by the Charlotte Ledger. And if I'm not mistaken, that was former AJC reporter Carol Rogers who was doing that work. Athletic has also learned that Nuno Santos, another Charlotte FC forward who is currently on loan to Crown Legacy FC, is linked to the same police report. Ledger obtained the report using Shinyashiki's name and date of birth, but he's not directly named in the document, was not charged with a crime. The Athletic obtained the report similarly using Santos's name and date of birth. Santos is also not named in the document and was not charged with a crime. An employee with the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Records Division told the Athletic it is department policy to not name involved parties in every publicly available incident report. In the report, which was filed on March 8, a 23-year-old unnamed woman says she was sexually assaulted in the early hours of February 26. According to the same report, the investigation into the incident is open but inactive, which indicates police are no longer actively investigating the incident. Shinyashiki addressed the allegations in a tweet posted Tuesday evening, saying he fully cooperated with Charlotte Police and MLS in their separate investigations related to the incident. No charges have been filed against me. I've also been cleared by MLS to play, end quote. Nuno Santos' reps did not immediately respond to a request for comment on Wednesday. MLS spokesperson declined to comment on whether MLS had indeed investigated and or cleared Shinyashiki, also declined to comment on Santos. MLS also declined to comment on when asked whether Shinyashiki had been entered into the league's substance abuse and behavioral health program. League has entered players into that program in the past for a wide variety of reasons, including incidents of domestic violence, substance abuse. MLSPA also declined to comment, citing the organization's policy of not commenting on player discipline and investigation. Charlotte FC spokesperson told The Athletic the club is aware of the report involving Shinyashiki, but would have no further comment. Club declined to comment regarding Santos. Shinyashiki last played for Charlotte on April 9, was not included on the matchday roster for their following game on the 16th against Colorado. Christian Latanzio declined to comment when asked why after the match, telling reporters, quote, "I just want to talk about the players that are here." 21st, Latanzio was asked again, but about the continued exclusion. Quote, "I also look to have a bit more clarity about certain things, but for now there are some private things we are internally discussing." Now to the rub. Shinyashiki was traded to Charlotte from Colorado in the 2022 season, made 28 appearances with Charlotte, has since signed a new contract through 25, club option for 26. Ford was a former MLS Rookie of the Year loan, and Santos was loaned to Crown Legacy, appeared in the club's last match 4-1 over NYCFC, which Santos scored in. So, Andrei Shinyashiki was thought to have been traded from Charlotte to RSL or Justin Meram. And that did not happen. All of a sudden, the Shinyashiki trade ended up being rerouted. The original trade from RSL, once again quoting Tom Bogert, original trade between RSL and Charlotte fell apart and is being amended. Initially, Shinyashiki in exchange for Meram. Then it was amended to where Charlotte is still acquiring Meram, but sending $350,000 in possible AM, with Shinyashiki remaining in Charlotte. Jarrett, your concerns, speaking for the collective.
Well, speaking for myself, I don't speak for anybody else.
Well, but I mean, they were questions that we all had in the group. Yeah. We were all thinking the same thing, so go ahead and say it.
How much did RSL know?
Yeah.
Because, like, is this a thing where, like, this information is passed around, to the league, like, hey, these guys are, hey, this guy is, being, investigated, maybe not in a criminal, and maybe the criminal investigation is not active, but this guy was recently linked to that. How much did RSL know?
Yeah.
Is that publicly available knowledge, or were they relying on Charlotte, and did Charlotte tell them, and they thought, yeah, we'll take it, and then, had cold feet? Was it information that Charlotte did not share at first? Because if that's the case, and I don't know that it is, so I don't want to say that it is.
Right.
If that's the case, it's incredibly shitty of Charlotte,
yeah.
On multiple levels, if that's the case. But again, I don't know that it is. This feels like the kind of thing that that like the league would
would make publicly available to the teams. Now, that doesn't mean it would be popping up on media sites, but that the teams understand what's going on. Or maybe it's one of those things where the other theory being that, did they make this trade and then it goes to the league for approval, like pretty much every trade does in the universe, when it goes to the league for approval and the league looks at it and says, hey, you're aware that we were doing this, right?
Yeah.
Either that's and man, maybe not, or oh no, we didn't know. Like, where was the breakdown of information? Because the deal's terms changed based on the Tom Bogert tweet.
Yep.
Now, Tom's tweet was vague enough that I'm not sure if it was a breakdown on the Charlotte side, where basically Colorado and Charlotte decided to renegotiate their deal, or if the league itself basically stepped in and said, okay, you're not going to do that. You just give them cash.
Yeah.
Just give them cash. We're not doing this. Because that's where I want to know is, like, where was the disconnect on that information?
And Will is in, and he goes, if Shinya Shiki passed the MLS investigation and the Charlotte investigation despite being linked, I'd be unsurprised if they didn't share, because if he was no longer being investigated and not being punished, they're not compelled to share.
Yeah, and something I'm guessing something happened, something was said, something got done where they said, okay, we're not gonna do this.
Yeah.
And the league said, okay.
Yeah.
And we're also getting this secondhand, especially from the Tom Bogert thing, because, and it's not a knock on Tom at all. Tom's great at what he does, but when it's secondhand, a lot of times you're not getting it in the moment, so we don't necessarily know the timeline.
Right.
They could have put the deal in place. He got word, boom, he sends it out. Gets it confirmed, boom, there's the deal. It could have been an hour or two later.
Yeah.
Where they said, actually, no, we're going to change it because of this past investigation, and there might be civil suits, and we don't want to deal with that. We'll just do cash instead.
Yeah.
We'll just take your cash instead. And it could have been that, and Tom might not have heard about it for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Totally. There's a lot of variables here. But yeah, man, we'll see. And it's an awful look for both of them. And the Charlotte community really has rallied around, from what I've seen personally, the Charlotte community has rallied around to condemn pretty much anything about this, because so even if it's not going to go to criminal charges, it sounds like it might be civil suit territory, which is still super messy for the club.
Yeah.
And it's potentially really stressful and awful for the victims, because you're going to be very careful about the way this gets reported, because you don't want to have any names come out. You don't want identities to be even suggested, much less confirmed.
Yep.
And you have to be very, very careful about every step of this.
Yep.
And it's going to be it's tough. And it's not something you ever wish anyone to have to go through on the victim side of it. And the league and the team are going to be careful about what they say as well, in that same vein of, we don't want to say anything that might lead to a connection.
Yep. So that's that was the news out of Charlotte, and obviously we'll keep an eye on it on a couple of different fronts, and we'll see what's going on there. But it was something that when you have a trade, and then it's not a trade, and then you have this news come out, the biggest element in this was, how much did they know and when did they know it, and were their conversations. And so that was the biggest informational hole that was missing, and that is still missing in this element of this trade that almost was, that ended up being something entirely different. But yeah, we were all kind of going back and forth in our production meeting about it, and we're like, yeah, there's something missing here. And so we figured that we would bring it to the fore, just as information continues to work its way forward in this. Just keep all that stuff in mind as we're staring at what's going on in Charlotte. And so when you turn into a pumpkin, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
All right. So then let's see. So tomorrow is 9:05, getting ready for everything. 9:30 is Beyond Goals Mentoring, and I think it's Greg Garza's turn. And then at 10 o'clock, it's Weekend Whip Around Patent Pending Trademark coming sooner rather than later. So we'll see you tomorrow.
Sounds good.
All right, Jarrett Smith, everybody. And so that's Jarrett. And since it is the beginning of hour number 2, that means that I turn things down to 15. That's or something close to it. Hit the rock music and cut a promo. For our friends at Lemonize Service, QR code over my left shoulder for those of you watching on Twitch. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, one place you need to go, it's Lemonize Service. Deodorizing enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos, they've created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pet cigarettes and food. Realtors and property managers use Lemonize Service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. Lemonize offers a turnkey process, makes it easy to work with realtors and property managers. Kind of the environment we like that these days. Offering a green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue whatsoever. Different than Febreze or our favorite masking agents that we have either underneath the sink or above us in the cupboard, because when you reach under the sink or above you in the cupboard, pull out the masking agent and spray it in the air. There's a reason they call it a masking agent, because that's all it does. It masks the odor. It does not attack the problem all the way down to the molecule like our friends at Lemonize do with their proven scientific formula. Pricing very, very easy, one of two ways. Either buy the cubic foot or parts per million to come up with a price that's affordable for you, offering results in 24 hours or less. If you have any questions, frequently asked or otherwise, one place you need to go, it's their website. And this is where I grab my pen. Lemonize.com, but do us a favor after the .com goes /Atlanta so they know what part of the world that you are addressing them from so they can help you with your problems. Full homework assignment, ELIMINIZE.com /Atlanta, Lemonize.com /Atlanta. Lemonize Service, proud sponsors of Everything SDH for your Thursday thoughts. We got a lot of international stuff to get into here in hour number 2. I really love that you guys are having the conversation that you are on the Twitch pitch, as you always do, about a variety of topics. And so here in hour number 2, we're looking at Messi, and we're looking at Sportico. Yes, David, exactly. Well, I mean, David, to answer your question, it is a stream of consciousness show, but we do have topics and ideas that come in. I mean, it is not scripted in the sense of scripting, but I do have things that I write down over the span of a day that I think we need to talk about on the show. Right there, So for those watching on Twitch, you can see my notes. And right now it's at 2 pages. And then when we talk about something, I'll cross it off. And if it's a topic that is kind of almost too deep, then what I'll do is I'll save it for the weekend and for, basically, David, it is outlines. Well, it's not even outlines. It's just more like bullet points and scratches. I started something last week, and it comes out on the weekends. It's a show called The Back Page. And what The Back Page is a lot of the stories that take real deep dives. I mean, that would take some substantial time to either explain or break down. Save them for the weekend. Present the stories and the evidence there, and then that way it's more of a deeper dive into stories that we come across during the week. A couple of contenders that will probably be in the Back Page this weekend. Rick Westhead, for those that do not follow him, that Rick Westhead does some fantastic work at TSN, and he has been on top of everything going on in Canada soccer recently. And so yesterday, there was a meeting. Canada soccer officials met to vote on new leadership. Senior national team members sent a letter to the provincial federation presidents criticizing the governing body's current executive, calling for fundamental change. They want change. Men's and women's national soccer team in Canada want change atop the organization. Players write in a letter to the provincial federations, we've grown increasingly concerned that the Canada soccer decision makers have not acted in the best interest of the sport of soccer in Canada. Apparently today, there was supposed to be some more testimony in front of the Heritage Committee. Charmaine Crooks will not testify. Busy chairing meetings at the AGM, now expected to testify May 11th after the elections. Amy Walsh quoted of saying there's been no leadership at Canada Soccer between the fiscal irregularities, the lack of transparency in Canada Soccer's leadership, not answering to anyone, not dealing with issues of abuse. I think they've failed miserably. So on SportsCenter, Rick Westhead's tackling an issue like that. That goes to the back page. We'll have more on that this weekend. Also, our friends at Yosemar Football, and this will lead me into our next topic here in hour number 2. Our friends at Yosemar Football, who do some fantastic investigative work, put out a story about Lionel Messi and crypto. And we all know what crypto basically is. So in 2021, Lionel Messi launches an NFT through Boss Logic and Eternity, 4 series of collections, and it was promotional campaigns and such. And so they've done a deep dive into Messi and Siren Labs and NFTs and all of that kind of stuff. And so that we'll get into on the back page this weekend. So there are stories out there that deserve a little bit more of a wider berth sometimes. And so that's why I've started just kind of saving some things and keeping them around until the weekend when we do that kind of a story. So Abby, Argentina starting academy teams in 4 cities, Atlanta included. Very, very cool. Ricky, I think there are going to be a lot of people who are shocked when Messi goes to Saudi Arabia when all the signs have been right in front of us the whole time. So let's get into that story. With Messi, Tom Morgan says that Messi is a 320 million pound pawn in Saudi Arabia's world domination plan. So here's the deal. Lionel Messi is in talks for the most lucrative salary deal in the history of football to the Saudi Pro League this summer. Yeah, bam, Messi goes in and CR38's running away. Talks with Messi's representatives, led by his father Jorge, are underway when the player becomes a free agent at the end of June upon the expiration of his PSG contract. The whole package could be worth $400 million a year, which would exceed the 165 million pounds that CR38 is being paid annually to play in Saudi until 2025. Saudi government has recruited former Manchester City chief exec Gary Cook, who was in charge of Manchester City when the Abu Dhabi takeover was complete in 2008, in a similar position in the Saudi Pro League, and anticipated he'll be involved in any discussion to secure Messi's signature. PSG offer has been on the table since January to extend the stay for another 12 months. Now there's no expectation it'll be signed, especially after the 2-game suspension. And the guy hops on his private jet when he's like, I've got commitments with my Saudi Arabia contract. PSG says no. He says, well, I'm going to hop on my own private jet and do them anyway. He performed those. PSG suspends him, suspended him for 2 matches, and they're basically done. So there's now a discussion as to trying to figure out, and because of this being what it is, we'll say if, since nothing is laid out. Nothing's been signed on the line, which is dotted. They got to figure out what team they want to have Messi on. Is it going to be Al Nassr with CR38 and Al Hilal with Messi? Recreating the rivalry that they had at Real and Barca. Al Hilal won the Asian Champions League equivalent in 2021, their 4th title. Now remember that this is all tied to the Saudi Arabia Vision 2030 plan. Trying to make Saudi Arabia this mecca, pardon the pun, apologies, this centerpiece for sport by the year 2030. Hey, we're a fantastic destination for sport. Hey, look at us. Come and have your tournament in Saudi Arabia. You'll be fantastic. It'll be fantastic. We'll all have a lot of fun. The development of the game, according to the Telegraph, has been fast-tracked by Mohammed bin Salman under that Vision 2030 as a part of their modernization plan. Messi is already the highest-profile ambassador for the Saudi Tourism Authority. Player requests to visit Saudi Arabia had been turned down. It was viewed as a breach of contract when he flew to Riyadh. Then Messi doesn't show up on Monday. They haven't made a formal statement. Underlying tensions between the Qatari, who own PSG via the QSI vehicle, and the Saudis are a part of this too. 16-club Saudi Pro League runs on the same August to May cycle as European competitions. According to the Saudi Pro League, attendances have almost doubled year on year. And since the arrival of Cristiano Ronaldo, conversations about the league on social media among women and girls is up 237%, according to Telegraph Sport. The 1,000-word STA press release sent to media yesterday to accompany the Messi family trip to Saudi Arabia underlined how important Messi is to the rebranding of the whole thing. And remember, they're finalists to host the World Cup in 2030. No, and Abby, you're absolutely right. It's all about money. Yeah, greed is real. Ricky, Messi won the World Cup. He knows his legacy isn't going to be touched no matter what he does. Going to Saudi Arabia is not the black eye we're making it out to be for him for that reason. The details out of the Saudi press release detailed the sightseeing itinerary, enchanted by his encounter with a white falcon that rested on his arm. And there is a picture of his wife, Antonella, wearing a Saudi hama, a decorative headpiece historically worn by women from the kingdom's Najd region. Remember the connections, played for Barca in Jeddah in 2020 in the Spanish Super Cup. 3-year deal worth $102 million to the Spanish Football Fed. November 2019, Riyadh hosted the friendly between Argentina and Brazil when Messi met Turki Al-Sheikh, the chairman of the country's General Entertainment Authority. Anthony Joshua's boxing match has been there. On a UNESCO World Heritage site. And remember, the PIF bought Newcastle. And so, of course, the Saudi government and Leo Messi's management have not commented. No surprise there. But, you know, Tom Morgan at the Telegraph says he's a pawn. I think it's willing participant. Yeah. And this is the thing. Tafka. Greed's definitely real, but Messi never struck me that way. I just don't see the appeal of Saudi. It's just money to a guy who can't possibly spend the money he has, but that's just me. Yeah, but he has been an ambassador of, and Rich, the WWE shows. Yeah, no doubt. All of the WWE shows that are going over there. And it was thought that the Saudis and the PIF might be one of the bidders for the WWE. Might get there before Endeavor did. So, you know, once again, when this contract is signed, not if, when this contract is signed, for him to go play in when he goes to play in Saudi Arabia, Michael Head, if this happens, it'll tarnish Messi's legacy mightily. I think in some circles, yes. In some circles, people won't care. Now, our friends at The Athletic have decided to sit there and go, Messi's future. Barcelona, Saudi Arabia, or Miami? Come on now. There are times when I feel that there are a lot of entities out there that are just filling up space to fill up space because they have to fill up space. Barcelona, yeah, and Barcelona, Miami. I mean, Miami, honestly, Miami, you can't match $400 million a year. You can't. Not even in Garber bucks and Beckham promises. Not going to happen. When this happens, this is where, yes, an athlete moves for money. Rich Ransom, shocked face. Exactly. So, yes. And Alex, you're probably not far off. Hello? Yes. I'd like to buy Rosario. No, all of it. Yes, that's right. And then, people sit there and go, what? I would like to buy Rosario, please. Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, it's common. Trust me, it's common. And, yeah, Ricky, not saying they shouldn't care, but they won't. An athlete moving for money. So, but Abby, is Miami the last stop after Saudi Arabia? I mean, if he signs a deal, let's play this out. So if he's 35, I know that a 40-year-old Lionel Messi probably could do some damage in Major League Soccer, but does he just go straight home? I think he goes straight home if he does anything. Here's what I think. Here's what I think gets laid out, because I initially thought, maybe after the deal with Barcelona and PSG, then he'd go to Miami, then he'd go home. I think now, any other step, I think Messi does a kickabout in the Saudi League for a couple of years, because right now it's 7 years before the 2030 World Cup. Yeah, and Ricky, and this is what I think is going to happen. I think that until the moment that it's announced, the 2030 World Cup, which is 5 years? I think it's traditionally 5 years or so. Lionel Messi will be that ambassador that he's always been. He's going to have the white falcon. He's going to have the white falcon on his arm. Going to make all the pretty pictures. And that's the thing. And this is the thing. I think until that announcement is made, I think here's what happens. He signs this $400 million a year deal. He will buy Rosario. Then once it is announced one way or the other, if Vision 2030 gets the World Cup in 2030, then that season, that announcement is made, will be his last as a playing professional in Saudi Arabia. Then he will retire. He will go home, but he will still be an ambassador for Saudi Arabia, and he'll probably live there half the year or whatever, live there during the season, shake hands, be dressed in a suit, wave from a box or something like that. So I don't know if a 38-year-old Lionel Messi will play in Miami, especially after you've made $400 million a year. What's it worth to you, wear and tear and all that kind of stuff? And so what I think is somewhat along the lines of Ricky. Ricky says if he goes to Saudi Arabia, and I believe he will, he's going back to Argentina or retiring. I think that Saudi Arabia is in play until the 2030 announcement. Whatever season that is, that'll be his last as a professional, because he'll sit there and go, oh, I'm going out, we're celebrating here in Saudi Arabia for something that we've done. And then, ta-da, I'm retiring, and I'm going to become a full-time ambassador. So he'll go home. He'll go home to Argentina maybe. But remember, there was the article about folks who were waiting for him, in quotation marks, after destroying businesses in his hometown. Do you even go home? So, that's what you're staring at. I legitimately think that it's Saudi Arabia. You make the announcement, then he retires, then he's an ambassador, and then, and that's the thing. Maybe they won't. Maybe they won't get 2030. But I think either way, until the announcement is made, he's playing in the Saudi Pro League, making that $400 million a year. Then when the decision is made, that's when that next step gets figured. as to what's the next step. He retires that league in the deal. Then does he go full-time ambassador, or does he go home? That kind of thing. That's what I'm staring at. And Ricky, I think that's what the Saudis were looking at the entire time, and the Saudi Tourism Authority. They wanted to have Ronaldo and Messi as joint ambassadors for 2030 and have them wave their hands in the air, wearing a suit, looking Natalie attired. Hey, look at Saudi Arabia. Aren't we great? I think that's what's going to go down. Ricky says he's been in Saudi Arabia 3 times in the last year. No one can think about the last time that Messi was actually even in Miami. People will wipe all of that stuff. Okay, so let's go back here. Tafka. I know he's an ambassador, and add that fundage to the pile, but it's a big difference to be an ambassador versus suiting up and playing in their league. I don't see it as a legacy tarnish, just a legacy end. There isn't a new chapter to write if he goes to Saudi Arabia. He'll play, he'll make money, no one will really care, and his career will end. Nothing interesting, nothing exciting, and the story simply ends. And people will wipe it away from their minds, and basically, as Ricky continues, end his story at the World Cup. So, and Tafka, if he goes to Saudi for more than a year, MLS won't chase him. It's game over at the age of 36, basically. Rich. I mean, did Messi even want to go to Miami? Some reports where it was the least money offer on the table, probably because it was something involving franchises, probably a Beckham deal, something like that, where you got to, we'll come up with the Messi rule, or in Sporting Kansas City's case, it was almost a CR37 rule. But we'll come up with a Messi rule. You can do whatever you want. You'll get a piece of the action for a franchise, name your city. Something like that would have a value of that $400 million somewhere down the line. But no, I don't know if he would be playing through it. Tafka, for fans, it's game over for Messi. He's being the guy of the sport if he goes to Saudi Arabia. Legacy ends with 22. Alex says he was in Miami last year. So that's what we're staring at with Lionel Messi. I'm anticipating this that he goes to play in that league, the Saudi Pro. And so we'll see what happens there. But speaking of PSG, it hasn't gotten any better for his teammates because apparently, according to our friends at Agence France Presse, PSG have ordered extra security at the club's training ground and at the homes of Lionel Messi, like he's there, and Neymar, after protests by fans angry over recent results at the league leaders, sources close to the club told the AFP today, actually. Several hundred PSG supporters gathered outside club headquarters last night, where they set off smoke flares and sang hostile chants about underperforming stars Messi, Neymar, and Verratti. Some of them dressed in black, then traveled to Neymar's home in a wealthy suburb of West Paris, where they chanted, "Neymar, get lost." PSG, quote, condemns in the strongest possible terms the unacceptable and insulting actions of a small group of individuals. Whatever the differences of opinion, nothing justifies such behavior. Remember, Neymar is injured. He's out for the year. Quote, he wrote this on his IG or on his gram or the Insta or whatever kids call it. Don't let people put you in their storm, put them in your peace. The club decided to boost security at its training ground and outside the homes of the players singled out during the protests. Once again, sources told AFP. Some of the fans had indicated, quote, they wanted to do the same thing every evening. Protesters left calmly several minutes after their arrival without any clashes with police. Messi was recently jeered by a section of the PSG support who see him as a symbol of all the club, owned by QSI, of all the club have done wrong in focusing on superstar signings while failing to build a genuinely competitive team. Messi has scored 20 goals in all comps this season, leading assist provider in Ligue 1 with 15. PSG lost to Lorient over the weekend, 6th defeat in 17 Ligue 1 matches in 2023, 5 points clear of Marseille at the top of the table with 5 matches to go. 5 points clear, 5 matches to go. You've suspended Messi. You don't have Neymar. They're mad at Verratti. That's where PSG is, in a league that they should be winning hands down every single blanking year. And it should be a boat race, a horizon job. I mean, like PSG should be out where the sunset is and everybody else is at the dock with the white hanky. But no, not the case. 24, 3-6 in 33 matches. 5 points clear of Marseille. This weekend, just to put it out there, PSG goes to Troyes, and they're a minus 300 favorite. Troyes is basically a plus 700. Marseille is at Lens. They are a road dog for Saturday. They're the late game on Saturday. PSG is the late game on Sunday. And then they're at home against Ajaccio. And Marseille is home to Angers next weekend. 5 points clear, 5 matches to go with PSG. And the fans are mad. The fans are booing. Fans are chapped and otherwise are pissed off. So that's what you're staring at right now. Ricky says you could see Messi, morning forecard, joining the Inter Miami ownership group when this is all over, but that's all I feel would happen. I could see that too. Like I said, getting his own MLS team, playing not so much. If Barca had ever get their financials together, he's going back to Barca, but I don't see that. That's always, when we talk about gossip, rumor, and innuendo and things left unsaid, we're always talking about teams and clubs and who could go where and all that kind of stuff. Barcelona getting their financials back together is the one thing that is always on my mind when it comes to what's going on. Do they get their financials back in order? Not so much. Yeah, Miami's at the bottom of the list, in the distant third. Michael Head would take 20 and 15 or fourth. Personally, don't think he's going back to Argentina right now. So Rich, black helicopters. So the Saudis won't be an angel investor in Barcelona? Yeah, but then you'd get into FFP. They'd have to buy it, the thing. Yeah, make Barca great again. A forecard, exactly. And Burn, I still can't get over the fact Barca spent 64 million euro on Rafinha. Should have just rebuilt with what they had and kept some powder dry. Nope. Not happening. You have a lot of folks who sit there and they want to go, I think that this will work. Not so much if you're Barca. And we mentioned clubs and clubs that are having issues at the moment. Did you see this? Todd Boehly was at the Milken Institute Global Conference, and he had to speak a couple hours after they lost 3-1 to Arsenal. So Todd Boehly watches his team lose, and then he's got to get up on a stage and talk. At the Milken Institute, Boehly insisted the ownership group is confident of future success. However, as they continue to learn about the global nature of top-level football. Oh, I know where you're going, Sean. Yeah, hockey down here's coming. Here's Boehly at the Milken Institute. Quote, "It is such a global sport, and unlike in the U.S., there are no unions. So there's a market for top players in every country in the world. And each of those markets is different. You've got the Portuguese market, the French market, the English market. And so you have the ability to go to these markets. Then, of course, obviously, you have to build a team, and your coach is the conductor of the team. I think there's a lot that we've learned about the different markets and the global aspect of it all. The fans are demanding. They want to win. We get that. We want to win. And, Michael, this is specifically Todd Bowley talk. It's not Chelsea talk. Our view, though, was that this was a long-term project, and we are committed to the long term, and we very much believe that we are going to figure it out. We've got the best league in the world, what I think is the top city in the world. We have an unbelievable location in the top city in the world. So let's go back to those last two sentences for a second. Last two paragraphs. Fans are demanding. They want to win. No, actually, let's go back three paragraphs. Then, of course, obviously, you have to build a team, and your coach is the conductor of the team. I think there's a lot we have learned about the different markets and the global aspect of it all. The fans are demanding. They want to win. We get that. We want to win. Our view, though, was that this is a long-term project, and we are committed to the long term, and we very much believe we are going to figure it out. So if this was a long-term project, the way that you reacted to Graham Potter does not yield itself to that kind of patience. You're committed to the long term. You very much believe we're going to figure it out. Pochettino will demand the size of the squad is reduced, as you should. Was it 32 right now? Insiders believe that'll be easier said than done due to the poor performances of the team. Mount and Kovacic have attracted interest from rival clubs. Number of stars will be hard to sell for big fees, including Pulisic, Koulibaly, Loftus-Cheek, Havertz, Ziyech, Mendy. So Todd Bowley says it's a long-term project, committed to the long term, very much believe we're going to figure it out. Okay. That was Todd Bowley at the Milken Institute Global Conference. They're going to figure it out. We've learned a lot, but we're going to figure it out. Okay. Just thought I'd put that out there this morning. Erik ten Hag wants clarity over the Manchester United spending power. He wants to sign Harry Kane, but admits uncertainty over who will own the club and if that could hamper his plans. Remember, the Ineos Group and the Sheikh Jassim Group seeking immediate control of transfers should either of their offers to buy the club get the green light. When you got 5 weeks to go before the transfer window opens. He's been told what funds he would have available this summer. I don't have influence on that. I don't know. Ten Hag continued later, in football, you need funds to construct squads because at the end of the day, the level from your players decides if you're successful or not. Everyone knows you need funds to construct a squad, and high-level players cost a lot of money, and that's the situation nowadays in top football. Wants a quality midfielder, striker, other areas of the team. Obviously, he wants to sell some folks. Admitted clarity over the ownership situation would be helpful as he attempts to build on this first season at Old Trafford. A debt-free Qatari takeover from our friends at The Telegraph could instantly boost United's income streams by up to £45 million a year just through an end to interest and dividend payments alone. Ten Hag, I think it's clear what I want, but it's not up to me. It's about others in this club. Family are the owners. They make the decisions. It's not up to me. So I do everything I can, and I influence the processes I'm in charge of. Where I can take my influence, I will do on the processes, but that the ownership is not my responsibility. So I don't have the power to influence that. So I'm focusing on improving the squad, the team development. I have to make sure the team's progressing, and I'm focusing on that. This is interesting. Ten Hag was spotted picking up a green and gold scarf, a symbol of the anti-Glazer movement at the Villa match, but the manager said it was just me being polite. I know it's going around what the symbol of it is, but this matter was just being polite. So keep an eye on that. We mentioned, burned. There are unions in European soccer, Todd. There isn't a collective bargaining agreement. You'd think you'd have figured it out. Okay. Yeah, like I said, yeah, we'll figure it out. Yeah, we'll figure it out. So there's all that. Yesterday we were shown, we got the numbers from our friends at Sportico, and we mentioned the 50 most valuable soccer clubs in the world. Man United, 145 years old. Real Madrid's 121. Barcelona's 124. They're 1, 2, and 3. LAFC, who is at number 16, is 6 years old. And so that's what you're looking at with all of these folks. And trying to determine, okay, who is the richest club in the world. Atlanta United came in top 20. And that's what you're staring at with as I sit here and try to log in on things. Oh, great. So I'm going to have to log in and do something else. But right now, the numbers yesterday for the most valuable soccer clubs in the world. Surprising no one. You've got a lot of the big names. Getting down to number 16. And at 16 was when you got your first influence from Major League Soccer. 16, 17, and 18. Your first 3 MLS franchises. LAFC, LA Galaxy, and Atlanta United. 1, 2, and 3. 16, 17, and 18. According to our friends at Sportico. When it comes to overall worth. And you mentioned the idea that you're sitting there and it's like, these clubs are 11 billion years old. LAFC is 6 years old. Atlanta United not far behind. And they're already top 20 in Sportico's value of sports when it comes to franchises. Oh, great. So if I'm not a bot, try it again. I'm not a robot. Maybe if this is what happens when you're supposed to subscribe to something on the fly and trying to get something done. So now that I have finally subscribed to Sportico, maybe I can read the article. So, staring at all of this, I think that what it does is it speaks a lot to what Major League Soccer is doing and building all this. So it calculated each team's revenue relying on publicly available financial statements, Deloitte, and other things. And so that's what you ended up with the ranking list from our friends at Sportico. Connection was interrupted. That's interesting. Okay, great. So as I'm trying to read the article, here we go. Okay, maybe this finally has gone through. Okay, so here's what you're staring at. Major League Soccer, 16, 17, and 18. LAFC, $900 million worth. 2023 evaluation. 2023 valuation has them at $900 million. And their 2021-22 revenue, $100 million. Atlanta United had $3 million more, $103. But the worth given by Sportico is $855 million for Atlanta United and $103 million in revenue. LAG had $865 million, just under $100 million in revenue. So that puts them at number 18 ahead of Lyon, ahead of Roma, ahead of Club America. The Sounders at 22, 725 million, revenue of 66. Toronto FC at 24, 705 million and 64. DC United at 25. That one I did not expect. DC United worth $700 million, and I guess you're looking at facilities too. NYCFC at 27, Portland at 29, 685 million. Austin's at 32, ahead of Everton. Sorry, Tom. Everton listed right now at $600 million in worth, $241 million in revenue in 21-22. Sporting and Inter Miami 37 and 38. Charlotte at 40. Minnesota United 41. Crew at 42. Union 43. So of the top 50, let's count MLSs here. 2, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 18. 18 MLS franchises right now in the top 50 in the Sportico rankings when it comes to franchise valuations. 18 of the top 50 are there. And not all the Premier League teams are there. We get into Premier League. And outside of West Ham, I think West Ham was the one that was listed the lowest. So EPL, 5 of the top 8, 6 of the top 10. West Ham at 37, Everton 8, Leicester at 9. Leicester's the 9th Premier League team mentioned, and they're at 45. So twice as many Major League Soccer teams are in Sportico's soccer team football club ranking list. Twice as many MLS franchises than you have Premier League franchises. Worth a total, and this is all 50 clubs, $73 billion. Manchester United at just under $6 billion in their worth. Top 15 richest teams are in Europe. MLS land, it's 18 in the top 50. 18 of 32. Kurt Badenhausen came out with the article. Their metrics for this. He goes into the deal with what's going on, private equity firms. Jerry Cardinal, Redbird founder, said European football is the best live event intellectual property in the world. But he cautions Americans looking at teams on the continent need to be respectful of the public-private partnership in Europe that he calls the biggest fundamental philosophical difference versus the United States. Nonetheless, investors are flocking to soccer, as you should. Results soaring valuations for football teams. Sportico talked to more than 24 bankers, lawyers, and investors directly involved in soccer to gauge the 50 most valuable teams. Valuations based on team-specific revenue multiples, which remains the standard metric for valuing sports franchises and transactions, as earnings can have a dramatic fluctuation from year to year based on player spending, special expenses. Positive cash flow is a pipe dream for many soccer teams. Multipliers based on several factors, including historic sales, market, brand, on-field performance, and facilities. For the Premier League and MLS, they use their previous valuations to come up with the full 50 teams and complete methodology. 10 leagues, 11 countries made the cut. MLS didn't place any teams in the top 15, but it had 18 in the overall. Serie A was third with 7. 18 clubs from the world's 15th ranked soccer league based on on-field results. I would say that the league is probably more 12 or 13. Outnumber the 17 total from the top 3 leagues, EPL, Bundesliga, La Liga. Scarcity has been a major factor in driving franchise values higher in the 4 big U.S. sports leagues. Prize of a franchise in the world's most popular sport in the biggest economy without the threat of relegation hanging over your head. The new Apple deal provides opportunity. Caught up with Jorge Mas about it. But yeah, 18 of the clubs in Major League Soccer more than twice what you're seeing from the Premier League are a part of these valuations. So, Ceferin, yeah, that's true. And Abby, you were definitely true. You were definitely square right there. MLS will not advance as a league until better reffing. David, in the EPL's defense, did he just type that? MLS does have a few more teams than the EPL. Also, the cost control its salary cap does help their value, and that was something that Alexander Ceferin, remember, he mentioned that on the Men in Blazers last week. He said, cost restrictions similar to payroll limits in American sports leagues would also help. In the future, we have to seriously think about a salary cap. If the budgets go sky high, then our competitive balance is a problem. Big clubs, small clubs, state-owned clubs, billionaire-owned clubs, everybody agrees. I'm not so sure about that. But Alexander Ceferin wants a salary cap where MLS, so it can grow from its number 12 or 13 position on the planet, really doesn't need one, I don't think, anymore. Or if you do, I think you need to expand your number of DPs. We talked about this before when we tried to fix the sport. And we've also tried to fix other things. But, yeah, you can check the article out at Sportico. Big deep dive there in trying to figure stuff out. But, yeah, 18 over 9. 18 over 9. Ricky, let's see if, once is anybody having Twitter problems? Okay. Yeah, and I mentioned, and we saw this yesterday as we're kind of getting ready for previewing the match, which we will do tomorrow in the 10 o'clock hour. Inter Miami midfielder Jean Mota suffered an LCL injury, whatever the LCL is, collateral ligament injury, undergoing surgery, out 4 to 6 months. So Jean Mota out. Don't have Gregory. So that is another big loss for Inter Miami as they head into the match this weekend. And Neville says that Rodolfo Pizarro suffered a knock against the Miami FC, which is why he didn't play against Columbus. Doubtful for Saturday against, thank you, Abby, lateral collateral. What I thought it was, but it's like lateral collateral. It didn't make it. It's so no Pizarro in training. Mota out 4 to 6 weeks. And no Gregory. We can look. What I'll do, Michael. Michael wants to know the best prop bet on Joseph having a hat trick. What I will do, I don't know if there's one on a hat trick, but I will see what the number is when it comes to the match in and of itself. So let's see what happens. USA, MLS. Basically, the Juice Boxers have thrown a blanket over it. They're within about 12 in the composite. Over under. Both teams to score. Goal scorers. Okay. Interesting, considering that he would have to start. The goal scorers from Bet365. This is where that's coming from. Joseph at any time is a plus 140. He'd have to start, but that's just me. Joseph is to score in either half is a plus 500. Any time to score is a plus 140. No one is in the negative side. No one's on the minus side when it comes to scoring. So Joseph plus 140, and this is any time in the match. Yakamaki's a plus 160 along with Leo Campagna. Luis Araujo, Stefanelli, Schneider Borgelin at a plus 187 for also for Atlanta United. Thiago's a plus 187 to score at any time in the match. Miguel Berry's a plus 225. Derek Etienne, Luke Brennan, Machop Chol, Nick Firmino at a plus 300. Eric Lopez at a plus 350. Aiden McFadden at a plus 450. Caleb Wiley's a 450. Tyler Wolf is a 450. Sadich is a 500. These are all on the plus side. So that's what you're staring at. So it's apparent that Bet365 is leaning in one direction. Yeah, it does. So, all right. So thank you, Tom. Speaking of ligaments, the really nasty Seamus Coleman injury, didn't blow out his ACL. They did say other ligament damage that'll likely end his season. Yes, he is the lowest odds to score at any time in the match. That does seem, yes, and that is interesting. Let's see. So Abby was looking for Gutman. Gutman is a plus 900 to score. Andrew Gutman's a plus 900. That's like, well, David, yeah, it was loading, and it took like 3 separate times to load. So that was why I was wondering if anybody else was having problems. Plus 140. Yeah, Twitter problems like unsolicited tweets. My alert or something more serious. Yeah, something more serious like actual access was where I was having problems. So Andrew Gutman at a plus 900. So Abby plus 900. And since Abby is on her way down there, remember, once again, the match is, let me see if they're going to get the super hyper mega pregame show. So let's see what happens on the weekend. 7:30 on MLS Season Pass. So it's a 7:39 start on Saturday night. Once again, we'll go over all the particulars tomorrow. But also remember, Sunday night here on the network, it is Atlanta United 2 and Inter Miami CFII. So the 2s will be on the network, and it'll be a little before 6:30 with the pregame show. Match starting at 6:30 down at DRVP and K. Big game in Florida on Sunday. Just saying. I mean, you're looking at, and I know this is where Sean is going, considering what happened last night. I mean, with Florida beating Toronto in game 1 in the semis. I mean, you got Florida winning game 1, Seattle winning in overtime in game 1. Carolina didn't have any problems with the Devils last night. And then VGK with an absolutely crazy game last night. Leon Draisaitl scored 4. So I guess the lesson here is don't score 4 in a game. Joe Pavelski scored 4 for Dallas, all 4, and they lose to Seattle in overtime. Draisaitl scores all 4 for Edmonton. They lose 6-4. So lesson learned. Do not score 4 goals in a game. Game 2 for Sean, by the way, is tonight at 7 o'clock. Florida at Toronto at the post office. Seattle and Dallas is at 9:30. And then Toronto and Florida. Toronto and Florida is on Monday night, 6:30 Eastern. Interesting start time. So Sean is going to be very, very busy. Very, very busy. Very, very busy man. So Alex is requesting that Abby have some things on them. Maybe Abby could bring some pastelitos back for you, Alex. Instead of, if she picks them up on Sunday, brings them back for you, pastelitos. That's a good question, Sean. Has anybody ever scored 4 in a soccer match and lost? We'll put that to the open ether. If anybody knows of anybody who scored 4 in a match and lost. So we'll keep an eye on that. But obviously tomorrow, once again, it'll be what we traditionally do on Fridays, 9 o'clock. And it's a hard out at 11, so I'm probably going to end up starting at 9 o'clock. So 9 o'clock, it is getting everything ready for the weekend. 9:30, our friends from Beyond Goals, and 10 o'clock is the weekend whip around, patent pending, trademark coming sooner rather possibly than later. And we'll get into all of that for the Friday show. I have a conference call at 11 o'clock to get ready for the twos match with IMCFII. So we'll keep an eye on that. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo. We'll get into the papers here before we go. Let's see. Al Hilal could be rivaled for Messi's signature by Inter Miami, according to The Guardian. Yeah, whatever. Real Madrid in talks over Jude Bellingham, but the German club say they've not yet received an offer from Real Madrid. Sheikh Jassim has abandoned plans to buy Neymar if his Manchester United takeover is successful. Instead, he's targeting Mbappe. Good work, Sean, flying down for matches for games 3 and 4. That's very, very strong. So he's targeting Mbappe, Kingsley Coman, and Camavinga instead of Neymar. Smart decision. West Ham's Declan Rice Bayer Leverkusen's Moussa Diaby, Crystal Palace, Wilfried Zaha, and Mark Gahey are among Arsenal boss Mikel Arteta's six-man summer wish list. Once again, from the four-letter paper, take the information at your own peril. Also from the four-letter paper, Chelsea are also interested in Zaha, who Pochettino tried to sign during his time at Spurs. Spurs have also made Xabi their top target to become Conte's successor after, and this is from the Metro and others, after Nagelsmann's wage demands put Spurs off the scent for Julian Nagelsmann. So Xabi Alonso now might be leader in the clubhouse for Spurs. Spurs have made initial contact with the Sporting Lisbon boss Ruben Amorim as well. He would be happy to take the job at the end of the season, apparently, according to our friends at the Times. Wout Weghorst, keen to remain at Manchester United, yet to open talks with him about staying after his loan from Burnley expires. Roma have placed a price tag of $35 to $40 million on Tammy Abraham ahead of expected interest from Manchester United, Spurs, and PSG. Marseille will move to sign Zaha if they qualify for Champions League. There was discussion about new Rafinha earlier in the show on the Twitch pitch. According to the three-letter paper, so once again, take the information at your own peril, Chelsea, Newcastle could lure Rafinha back with a £70 million move. $70 million to Barca. Barca should take that and run. Chelsea likely to have Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang leave on a free if they want to get rid of him. Villa in advance talks to bring in Matteo Alemany, set to leave his position of director of football at Barcelona in the summer. So you got that going on. You've also got Brighton today, and they are playing Manchester United. That one is this afternoon at 3:30. We'll keep an eye on that. Checking the papers, as we always do. After checking gossip, rumor, and innuendo, let's see. That's news. That's not papers. Here we go. Papers. Once again, avoiding the 3 and the 4-letter paper as we traditionally do, unless it sneaks under the radar to us. Brighton fears that De Zerbi will not stay at the club beyond the season among serious interest from Italy. We talked about that a little bit yesterday with Bart and Nick. Let's see. Daily Express. Manchester United met with a firm refusal after expressing interest in Inter Milan striker Lautaro Martinez. We mentioned Ruben Amorim with Spurs possibly. The Premier League, and this is for Tom Russo, the Premier League made clear to Alisher Usmanov that he would not be permitted to loan money to Everton or any other football club after learning he'd been banned by the Home Office from entering the UK 6 months before he was sanctioned in the wake of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We'll keep an eye on this, and I know that Tom has been at the forefront of letting us know everything Everton, but yeah, it could get pretty nasty, especially if the government gets in place. So Sean is flying down for games 3 and 4 against Toronto. He's also calling Mbappe to Spurs. Alex, everybody with Newcastle's name in their mouths all the time. Abby is looking for Pastelito recommendation places. Also in the papers. So you got to keep an eye on Alisher Usmanov and what's going on with Everton. Football fans who set off flares or fireworks at games in Scotland are to face criminal action from next month under new measures to tackle the problem. We saw what that did with the match over the weekend where you couldn't see if you were watching it on television. The Athletic, Chris Wilder expected to take charge of his final game as Watford head coach against Stoke City. 2023 Women's FA Cup final between Chelsea and Manchester United set to be played out at a sold-out Wembley for the first time. Very, very cool. And Joao Pedro set to miss Watford's final game of the season against Stoke. Likely played his final match for the club. Daily Record, Rangers director Andrew Dixon set to become the club's latest departure as new chairman John Bennett continues his shakeup. And also on the board, Bennett has met with a prominent supporters group who are encouraged by his willingness to listen. Okay, well, good for you. They're listening. What else is going on before we go? What's on the tube? What you can watch and where you can, or what you can stream if you're in a position to do that. On TV, BN Copa Libertadores tonight has a triple header. And once again, if you have none of these networks, you can get them by signing on to Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. Helps out the show, helps out the network, and helps you out with places that you wouldn't have been able to watch things before. BN, Gold TV, For the Fans, Teise, all that stuff. Racing Club Flamengo at 6, Libertad Atletico Paranaense at 8, Deportivo Pereira and Monagas at 10. Brighton and Manchester United's at 3 on USA Network. Being an Espanol, get your simulcast of the Libertadores. La Liga action 1:30 and 4 on ESPN. Deportes Universo is your Spanish simulcaster for the Brighton Manchester United match. Doubleheader on Golazo Network in Serie A, Empoli, Bologna, Udinese, Napoli. 4 matches on the plus in La Liga. Sevilla Espanyol 120, Girona Mallorca 130. Doubleheader at 4 available. Athletic Club Real Betis, Rayo Vallecano via the lead. Paramount Plus also has the matches that are on Golazo Network. So that is what you can watch, and that is where you can watch it. It's been a very, very busy day, and most of my stuff is checked off the list. And that's a good thing. So interesting to hear what Todd Bowley had to say at the Milken. If they're going to sort it out, they're learning. And that's what you're learning. Okay. So you got all of that going on. Like I said, a couple of other things that were in the deep dive. You can keep an eye on it for the weekend. We'll keep an eye on all these things. And the Wrexham prices, man, the Wrexham prices for just getting into the building in Los Angeles, $45 to get into the building and up to $275 just to have a seat. Not that interested. Interested, but not that interested. And apparently the match in North Carolina has sold out. So very, very cool stuff there when it comes to all of this. We're going to call it here because I think we covered everything. Like I said, Deep Dive will have stuff on the weekend that would take a lot longer to get into. So we'll be back at it again 9:05 tomorrow morning. Thanks for hanging out with us as you always do. Fantastic conversation that you guys had in the Twitch pitch this morning about a lot of different topics. We're like a week and a half away from the W League starting in the USL, so we'll obviously have those previews as well, and we'll get into all of that stuff going on. We got NPSL coming up really quickly. High school championships are going on Thursday and Friday, and here, and I thought it was hanging up. All right, so here's what is going on so far in the high school championships today. Let's go back. Tuesday at McEachern, Aquinas beat Towns County 5-2 in the single AD2 girls. Christian Heritage beat Georgia Military 2-1 for the single AD2 boys. Ricky, we will see you tomorrow. At Mercer, Mount Vernon beat Paideia. Paideia got the split. The boys, even with the red card they got in the Armurchi match, beat Atlanta International 2-1. So Mount Vernon wins on the girls in single A, D1. Paideia won on the boys' side. Yesterday, Fellowship Christian beat Athens Academy 5-1 to win AA girls. Tatnall County beat Providence Christian 3-2 to win AA boys. At Mercer, Jason and Jess called the Oconee County split. Oconee County girls beat Bremen 3-1. Coahulla Creek boys beat Oconee County 1-0. Today at McEachern, if you can go, 5 o'clock and 7:30. It's the 5A. It's the 4A. North Oconee, Westminster. Westminster going for the sweep. Girls playing North Oconee. Boys playing Johnson Gainesville. If you can make it to McEachern at 7:30 to catch Johnson Gainesville, do it. Duluth, 5 o'clock. Remember, this got changed from 5-star and Mercer at Duluth now because Mercer's lacrosse team qualified for hosting as a conference champ. Duluth at 5 o'clock, Greenbrier and Chambly. We've had the Chambly girls on the network earlier in the playoffs. 5A boys at 7:30. We've had the Dalton boys on. We've had the Midtown boys on. So Duluth, big doubleheader, 5:30 and 7:30 today. Tomorrow at McEachern and Duluth, it is the 6A and the 7A, and we will go and let you know what's going on from there. But if you can catch it at the NFHS network, please do, because it's Jason and Jess tomorrow. And if you can make it there, because there's some real cool stuff going on in the high school ranks as well. All right, so that's it for today after the false out that I gave you. But enjoy your day. Be safe. Glad to hear from everybody. Glad to see everybody out there on the Twitch pitch. We'll be back at it again 9 o'clock tomorrow because it's a hard out at 11 o'clock. So 9 o'clock, we're avoiding Turner time tomorrow only. because I got to be out by 11 o'clock for a conference call. So that'll do it for everybody here at STH. For Jarrett, for Jason, for Nick, I'm just John. Played safe. Since it's the end of the show, that means I get to do this, and we'll be back at it again tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out.